Hello and welcome to Deep Blue Sea, the podcast. I'm your host, Jake Lowe. On this show, we love to talk about Deep Blue Sea and films that are like Deep Blue Sea. We're going through it scene by scene once again, but between us episodes, we're talking about other shark films or Deep Blue Sea adjacent films, and still tackling the Sharknado franchise, because today we're talking about Sharknado 2, the second one, which is the title of the film is Sharknado 2. The second one, it is the second Sharknado film. Still written by Thunder Levin, still his real name. Still directed by Anthony C. Ferrante, presumably his real name too. Still starring Ian Ziering and Tara Reid, but now joining the fun we have Vivica A. Fox, Mark McGrath, Carrie Wurr, Judd Hirsch, and a whole bunch of cameos that I'm sure we'll get into, some of whom I recognised, many of whom I didn't, because I'm English. These are mostly American. So we had a great time recording the first one with Jeanette, but wanted to get another Sharknado fan in for the second one. Mark's still not joining us, please, because he doesn't want to, and I don't blame him. But we're going to have a great time, because joining us we have a Deep Blue Sea All-Star, one of our favourite guests, and one of the Deep Blue Sea players you can hear on a regular basis at the start of the chapter we're going to go through at the moment. From Rabbit Hole Podcast, it's Heather Baxendale-Walsh. Heather, welcome back to the show.
Hello, thank you for having me back on, and for something so ridiculous, but that I love so much.
Thrilled to have you. Thrilled to have a Sharknado fan on to help guide me through my first dive through this franchise. So before we dig into the second one, you are a fan of these Sharknado films? Yes?
Yeah, and it started off as kind of a joke. I mean, I love shark movies. I love adventure movies. I love disaster movies, and I have an obsession with tornadoes. So it was like somebody said, "Hey, we're going to make this ridiculousness just for you." But I think my enjoyment really came from watching them with my nephew. He was really little when they came out, and I used to babysit him 3 days a week. So as time went on, he and I have watched the entire series together. And as they progressively get worse and worse and more ridiculous, it's fun. It's been a lot of fun. And with that too, he and I ended up going deeper into other strange movies like Five-Headed Shark Attack and Robo Shark and Ice Sharks and Sand Sharks and Two-Headed Shark and Mega Shark versus whatever shark. All of the ridiculous sharks. There are so many. I can't believe there are so many.
We will never stop doing this podcast.
No, that's what I was thinking beforehand. When I was thinking about it, I'm like, wow, there are so many of these movies. If you dive deep, you will never, ever, ever run out of content. And I've seen so many of them, so I will be happy to come back and talk about all of the ridiculousness at any time.
Yeah, we've only crossed ice sharks off of that list that you ran through, but the rest are all in there. We'll do 2, 3, 5, and 6-headed shark attacks at some point. That's a franchise we'll go through, I'm sure. Sand sharks is on the list. I think I have a guest who wants to talk about sand sharks already. So
that one I actually didn't watch with my nephew. I caught my husband watching that one. I was like, "What are you watching?" He goes, "Corin Nemec's in this," and we know Corin because he's a Vancouverian and he's been in Stargate and Supernatural, and I doubt people know him otherwise. But I'm like, what?
Yeah,
it was so stupid, but it was so funny. So yeah, I watched the last half of it. It was nonsense.
I love just like watching a film that you've never heard of, no one's ever heard of it, and then like as an actor you just wait a minute. I reckon like we covered the Rennie Harlin found footage horror film Devil's Pass recently, and that has an actress called Gemma Atkinson in it, who she's a UK soap star. Who I don't watch soaps. I used to when I was younger, but I was just aware of her as a celebrity, and I've always had a bit of a crush on her. And I just watching this film, I was like, wait, Gemma Atkinson's in this? Hell yeah, watch this film. And it was just, I enjoyed it so much more than I think I should have done, just because, hey, she's in this film, great. So I love when that happens.
I look at it as kind of being like akin to, some people really enjoy watching like the Hallmark movies, and you see a lot of actors that were much more prolific and in bigger things when they were younger. And sometimes we say that's where people go for their careers to die. But I mean, come on, this is the same thing. It's just a different playground, and it's fun. And yeah. I understand. I understand the attraction to Hallmark movies. I totally get it, and I'll watch them during the Christmas season because my husband loves them.
I don't think I've seen one.
You don't need to stick with this genre. It's weird but it's funny. You're gonna laugh at least.
Well, I'm sure there'll be things to laugh at in Hallmark films, but there is like a whole they have made it over to the UK. There is a whole channel for them at Christmas time, but that's a channel I skip over. So good. Another channel I've often skipped over is the Sci-Fi Channel, which maybe has been a mistake because that seems to be where all these fantastic shark films are, because that's
That's where all these are. Back, I was, I had to have been like, oh wow, I'm not old, but I am aging certainly. It had to have been
aren't we all?
15 or 16 years ago, indeed. 15 or 16 years ago when I had Movie Mobsters, the website, I had a sci-fi original thing I did every week. So I reviewed one sci-fi original movie each week. I was just talking to my co-host Mark about it. I was trying to remember the Luke Perry one. I'm like, it was inspired by snakes on a plane. I'm like, I think it's eels on a submarine, and I couldn't remember what it was. It's called something like Silent Assassin, but it was snakes, and they were on a submarine, and Luke Perry was in it, and it came out in like 2014, and it's awful, but you should definitely watch it.
I feel like if you've got to the point where you're doing a parody of Snakes on a Plane, you may have missed the point. A little
Exactly.
bit. But I remember when it came out, my friend and I were trying to pitch how we would do it, and our sequel to Snakes on a Plane was going to be Snake on Planes, where it was one giant snake draped across like 8 planes all flying at the same time. And I mean, why not?
I would watch it. I would watch
Is,
it.
is that any less ridiculous?
No, but hey, at least when you go to those movies, you know exactly what you're signing up for.
Yeah, I feel like we might do if we continue to keep doing laps of this Deep Blue Sea chapter by chapter, we might do a Deep Blue Sea stars adjacent lap and try and find like the actors of Deep Blue Sea, what films have they been in that's adjacent. And Snakes on a Plane feels like one of Sam Jackson's most Deep Blue Sea adjacent films.
Oh, yeah. That would be a great
yeah,
segue.
monster
Of course,
movies kind of thing.
see, you will never run out of
Yeah,
content with this
I know
podcast.
it's because
Brilliant.
you expand it, it's just like creature features, films that take place in the ocean. Eventually, we'll run out of Rennie Harlin films. We've only actually got a couple left at this point. But then he also directed a bunch of TV shows and music videos. So we've got 3 different directions we're spinning off in, plus just going through the film scene by scene in perpetuity. So let's get on with Sharknado 2, shall we?
Indeed.
So yes, that's my first time watch, and then I did what everyone does when they watch Sharknado 2. I then watched it again the next day, because why wouldn't I do that kind of thing? I don't know if I was expecting this to be good or not. In reaching out to people to be guests, people have said like, "Oh, the first 2 are good," but I didn't know if they said like the second one was good. It's good for a Sharknado, but no, I had a great time with Sharknado 2. It's got a bigger budget, as you can like. It's got a bigger location. So everything's like
Yeah.
New York, so there's more set pieces, more like expensive set pieces. Much bigger cast, and a lot more shark-related deaths of some famous people. But yeah, I had a fun time. I feel like my enjoyment's gonna take a sharp dive down from the future ones, from what I've heard. But I don't know yet. I'm not writing them off at this point.
They get progressively. I don't want to use the word worse because I don't think any of them are actually good. I don't think saying the first 2 are good is fair, but I think saying the first 2 are actual movies is fair. After the first 2, they stop. They cease to be films, and then they just turn into spectacles.
Yeah, at this point, I'm still not committed to watching all of them. I'm going film by film. So at this point, I'm committed to watching the 3rd one. So we'll see how it goes from there.
Fantastic. It's been a long time since I've watched all of them. It's been a really long time since I've seen this one. So it was kind of I remember the punchlines and whatnot. But it has a beginning, a middle, and end. It certainly does. Again, I would not use the word good, but I wouldn't on any of them. But it is fun, and I think the difference between this one and the first one, I think the first one was a little more serious. As in,
Yeah.
the people making it took it a little more seriously, and the people involved in it took it a little more seriously. And I think in this one, it was more of a fully tongue in cheek. I don't think anyone other than Ian Ziering was serious about
Well,
any of this movie.
I think something Jeanette and I talked about for the first one was that Tara Reid is awful in it. It's the worst performance I've seen
Oh,
from any actor in any film ever.
God, yes.
But she's better in this one. Jeanette prepared me for that. She said that Dari gets better as the films go on.
I
So I feel
don't
like
know about that.
well,
But...
she's better in this one than in the first one, because in the first one she doesn't care at all. She's
No,
reading,
and
yeah, she's like
yeah,
deadpan delivery of every line, how much emotion is supposed to be in it, and here she actually seems to be on board with getting paid.
and
To show up.
that does continue. So, okay, I will agree with Jeanette in that. I would not say the acting gets better, but the enthusiasm does.
Right, which that's
So,
all we need sometimes, I guess.
yes, whereas we do have Ian Ziering who definitely thinks that this is very, very serious. This man has shown up with bravado, and he's going to play it like he's working for an Oscar, and that in and of itself to me is hilarious. And I always thought that, but we had some local DJs that had him on, and they've been around here for like 35 years. I used to listen to him driving to my commute to college, and now my oldest, who's 21, listens to them while he commutes to Ann Arbor to go to work. And they've had big stars on over the years, but they had Ian Ziering on, and they said that he was one of the worst interviews they ever had
Oh, no.
because they were making jokes about the movies, thinking he would have a sense of humor about him. And this is like 4 or 5 movies in. I think the fifth one is the Star Wars one, which
I think
really
yes.
isn't.
No, it's the
Yeah.
fourth. It's the fourth Awakens.
Yes. Thank you. So it was around he'd done at least on the Star Wars one, which by that point, how seriously are we taking this? But apparently he was still taking it very seriously. So they were throwing some jokes out with him, and he got pissed off. and he barely answered any more questions, and they cut the interview short. All these people for 20 plus years that they've interviewed, and they said that he was by far the worst.
That's disappointing. He's not someone I had, but I didn't know who he was. I said on the last episode that I thought he was like I had thought before watching the films, I thought he was like a American football player who was just like acting. I thought that's where he'd come from, but no, he apparently is from soaps and things.
He did 90210. I grew up with him on 90210. It's a soap opera.
That's not a show I ever watched. So
no, I wouldn't recommend it either. That's why I watched Luke Perry and his Snake Submarine movie. That's where 90210 actors go to.
Going through his whole filmography, the only things I've seen him in are Sharknado films at this point. So I did catch a little bit of Lava Lantula at one point, which he is in apparently. But I haven't watched that entirely. And he was in the Muppet, one of the Muppet series, but they have a lot of cameos in those, so I'm going to allow myself for missing that.
You're not missing anything. It's all right.
I think he's committed to this role. He's given it everything he's got. I think he's doing fine. So that's. But what is he doing? What is he doing fine at? Well, the film opens on a plane with an airplane reference. I love how these films just start.
Yeah.
There's no the film just starts shot out to the second one. We're off. Let's go.
Yep.
We're not none of this preamble nonsense. Let's just get into it. So we have an airplane reference with the fin of the plane cutting through the clouds like the shark fin. I was like, oh, that's the joke that Airplane did, which kind of it was funny then. I guess riff on that is okay. But then you have the pilot from Airplane flying the plane. You have why can't I remember his name? Robert Hayes. You have Robert Hayes in this film playing Captain Bob Wills, just like flying the plane. This feels like a hat on a hat. In terms, but okay,
a hat on a hat. I love that.
And then they talk about I always have the chicken on a plane. I was like, okay, sure. But so they're on the plane. They're flying from LA to New York. It's a book signing tour because April has written a book, How to Survive a Sharknado, as discussed on the previous episode, a real book that I also now own.
It's a real book? I'm buying it. I have a shirt that says I survived. I've got matching shirts for myself and my nephew that says I survived Sharknado. I have to get the book.
I bought it for like £3 secondhand online. I haven't read it yet because we recorded the episode last week, so it's only just arrived. But it's being released 6 weeks apart. But don't worry about that. That's fine. My schedule is all over the place at the moment. But yeah, I had the book. It's a real book. It's all about the first film, and it has recipes and things in it, and how to survive other fictional monster disasters. So I love that they made the book for the film and then released the book. So yeah, April wrote this book to go into book signing tour on the plane. And as they're flying there, wouldn't you know it, it happens again. To quote the film, a Sharknado erupts. Sharks on the wing of the plane, for a Twilight Zone reference as well. Uh, and the pilots get taken out. Finn has to land Finn, the former celebrity surfer turned
Yeah,
bar owner, lands the plane.
I know. Which, by the way, I was like, my husband is constantly telling me that he can fly and he'll learn to fly and it'll be fine. And no, it won't. He has a flight simulator game now. So yeah, at this point, I'm pretty sure he's doing it just to terrify me. But he's watching this part and he comes in the room and he goes, "Hey, didn't you say that guy was a surfer?" I'm like, "Yeah, get out of here." He's like, "He can fly the plane. I can fly the plane." I'm like, "Stop it. Stop it." Oh, yeah. So
I reckon that there's got to be people who are like trained pilots out there who are just waiting for the day they keep flying commercial flights and waiting for the day someone come back and say, the pilot's taken ill. Is there someone aboard who can fly the plane? And the plane could have been full of those people, and they didn't get the opportunity because Finn just storms in there and lands the plane. Whatever.
he does, and it's so ridiculous.
Well, if we on the subject of ridiculous, whilst Finn is landing the plane, April is trying to come up and help. She gets almost sucked out of the plane. She's hanging on. There's sharks coming towards her. The air marshal slides his gun over. She grabs the gun, shoots perfectly at these sharks, and then of course one of the sharks it bites her hand off with the gun on it.
Yeah.
And April spends the rest of the film without a hand.
She makes, but the yelling that she makes is so funny. It's not. I don't know if it's supposed to be funny, but it's hilarious, and I can't stop laughing because I keep hearing her make the sound, and then she does it again later in the movie, and I'm like, it's so wonderful.
Yeah, so April has lost her hand and the gun, and she only has one hand for the rest of the film, and sometimes that's relevant. Often she seems fine.
Oh, it becomes very important as the series goes on.
Oh, excellent.
She takes yeah, she sure does. It gets pretty exciting that one-armed April if she survives.
They land the plane. Oh, Kelly Osbourne is on the plane. We'll go through the cameos that I picked up as we go through. So Kelly Osbourne is their flight attendant. She gets decapitated. Will Wheaton is another passenger. He gets decapitated.
Oh yeah, I forgot that he was. That shocked me too. That was great.
Kelly Oxford, not someone I've come across before, but she is an author and a writer, I think.
Yep.
She is the lady who goes into the bathroom, into the toilet, and like sniffs the air because Finn's been in there a long time. And she gets decapitated on the toilet, which is kind of a Jaws / Snakes on a Plane scene. Sorry, Jurassic Park Snakes on a Plane scene. Like eating on the toilet.
Yes, Jurassic Park.
So that's fun. Plane lands. Everyone gets off. April lost a hand. Finn still has time to give a press conference.
Yes, with Andy Dick, the police officer.
With Andy Dick, the police officer, being shot in an entirely different scene, an entirely different week, with just different everything. You've got someone pretending to be Andy Dick in the background of Finn's shots, but it's clearly not the guy. I was waiting for Andy Dick to come back in the film at some point. So because he's like, Finn's giving his speech to the camera. There's a Sharknado. It's gonna kill everyone. And Andy Dick's just as a policeman going like, sure, okay. And I was waiting for when Finn does the same speech at the end, everyone's listening to him, Andy Dick to be in that crowd and like, yeah, sorry about before, I'm on board now, kind of thing. And it just doesn't happen.
This is a missed opportunity. Yeah, totally missed opportunity.
Because that feels, some of the cameos I enjoyed, like Will Wheaton on the plane. That's fun.
Yeah.
He's basically playing himself. The lady next to him, I think, was his girlfriend at the time, his partner. And so it's just, hey, Will Wheaton gets eaten. Andy Dick is just odd. It's just I didn't think he added anything other than like, hey, it's Andy Dick. Huh.
But that's kind of Andy Dick for me. I'm not a fan of him anyway. I never really have been. But he is the cameo guy. I see him show up and stuff all the time, and usually I'm not happy about it. The one cameo I do enjoy with him is in Dude, Where's My Car? That one is fantastic when he's in the cage. And it's just really weird.
I watched that a lot as a kid, but it's been a long time. I'm trying to think.
You should watch it again. It's when it's when they're looking for the The dude, it's not a llama park. It's a llama
Sure,
dude.
yeah, that's
Yep.
a lot
Yep.
of that
Yep.
was a very
Yep.
very quoted scene from my youth.
Yes,
Dude, it's a
it still
llama.
is here. My brother and I still have agreed that we are going to get dude and sweet tattooed on our wrists.
Okay.
That's it's going to happen because
and
we're adults.
and then
No, and then I almost said that to you in the chat today when I was complaining about Skype, and I was like, and then this happened, and then this happened, and then all I heard was and then in my head, and I'm like, leave it, you've already gone on a tangent, woman.
so April rushed to hospital, surgery, hand, etc.
Oh
And
yeah, and downtown Julie Brown, she was one of the nurses.
someone who I'd never heard that name before or recognized her at all. Someone who
she,
I'm not
she
familiar
was
with
a
in the
big
slightest.
she was a really big VJ on MTV when I was a kid, like in the late 80s, early 90s. I loved Downtown Julie Brown. I thought she was so cool. And I looked at her. I was like, is that her? Is that her? I looked it up. So I found out I was right.
Well,
Otherwise, I wouldn't have known for sure.
I've
But
had
yeah.
a little spoiler that she does crop up again in Sharknado 5, apparently. So I'll be looking forward to that in Global Swarming, coming soon. So one of the reasons they've gone to New York is the book signing, but also they're meeting up with Finn's family because he is from New York. So we have his sister, played by Carrie Wurr from Anaconda.
Yeah.
I love Carrie Wurr. That's I don't know how to pronounce her surname. She's always great. I was delighted to see her in this. So that's his sister. Then we have Mark McGrath is his brother-in-law. Turns out he was also Finn's like best friend growing up. Who since he hooked up with Finn's sister, they've kind of been a bit at odds because Finn wanted his sister to end up with somebody better than him.
his best friend. Yeah, which is
Yeah,
just it's a really weird and strange line of dialogue that they had to create this tension between the two of them.
it
Once
is.
again, it felt like, do you really need that? I
Yeah.
also when this came out, I think it was around the time that Mark McGrath was hosting on E. I think that he was, but it is still kind of funny to see him in his sweater. I'm like, you used to be in a punk rock band, dude. What happened?
But
And
he was
now,
also somebody that I'd never heard of. So I
really?
had to dig into like, who is Mark Ruff? Oh, he was in the rock band Sugar Ray. Who
Yeah,
was Sugar Ray?
they were a big deal for a while there. But
I
yeah,
feel
he
like
was
this.
also a host on E Entertainment, and he did all sorts. He was actually really good on it. I liked him on there. But yeah, he was
Okay.
on there for a long time.
I feel like I'm gonna get this reaction a lot going through this franchise. Like, who is this supposed to be? Who
That's okay.
like?
I'll just keep telling you who nobodies are.
And they have a couple of kids, but they don't really do a bunch. So they try to establish some character. They said the son has got like a photographic memory and is super smart, and the daughter is like trying to be sexy like her mum used to be, but like don't worry about it. They're, they're not really a
That's all
part of
you
the
need
story.
to know. That's all you need to
They're
know.
always
Perfect.
they're always present. They don't do anything. So um,
And they're kids in a movie, which Jay and I are not fond of anyway.
sure,
They're
yes.
almost fully grown kids, so they don't suck as bad. But they don't really contribute anything until the end when it's completely unnecessary and silly.
Yeah.
But it ends at least the son ends up being pretty funny at the end.
I did not miss Finn and April's kids from the first film. I
Nope,
don't know if they crop up again later, but I didn't miss them. I
they
did miss
do.
Nova. I thought Nova was going to be back in it, but I think she comes back in future sequels.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think in the
Okay.
next one. I think in the next
Okay.
one.
We shall
Yeah,
see.
the order. Like I said, these are the only two complete movies in my brain. The rest of them, it's
Sure.
just all the events merged together.
Fair enough.
They go to space. That's all you need to know. They eventually go to space.
Great.
Yep.
So
That's the journey
and
we're on.
I saw like all these characters that are named after like Jaws characters, where Mark McGrath is playing Martin Brody.
Yes.
And Ellen and Vaughn is the son. That may have anyway, whatever. So the dad and the son go to a baseball game. The mother and the daughter go to see the Statue of Liberty. They're from New York, but they're going to see us. Whatever. Don't worry about it. And they meet up with a couple of their friends when they get there, and then all of the water is suddenly full of sharks.
For no reason at all.
That's the no reason at all. It irked me a little bit. I don't go into these films expecting it to be fully explained, but they did try and make some kind of explanation as to why there was a Sharknado first time around. There was a bunch of sharks, global warming, causing like they kind of did some reasoning behind it. But here it just seems to be Finn and April being hunted by Sharknadoes.
Yes, and that is
Uh,
kind of what continues. And I think, and I may be mistaken because it has been a while, and like I said, it's just kind of a blur together. I think that they're like attracted to them or have some connection to them
right.
eventually. I think they try to explain it. But again, the first movie is the only movie that is a real complete movie that tried to be a film.
Well, I'm going to continue to judge them as such. So
Keep
we'll see.
doing it. It's fun.
And then at the baseball game, oh no, we'll stick with the ferry. We'll finish that off first. So they go to the ferry. There are a couple more friends there. One of whom is Pepper from Salt and Pepper.
Yep.
Polly, and the other one I did not catch her name, so I don't know who she is. But
Cannon fodder.
Yeah, neither of them survived that much longer. Don't worry about it. I assumed it was you must be Salt then, but nope, there's no relation. Nope. I also found out that Salt and Pepper was a trio, which I did not know.
Yes, Cinderella.
I assumed Salt, Pepper. But no, there's.
It's an N. Salt in, and the N is Cinderella.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
This I didn't know. Well,
I've known this almost my entire life, but when I actually have to explain it, I realize how ridiculous it is.
So they're at the Statue of Liberty. They meet up with their friends. They get the phone call from Finn, saying they're at the hospital, and Kerry Wara's like, well, but my husband, your nephew, they're at the baseball game. Their phones are turned off. You've got to go save them, Finn. I'm stranded out here. So Finn has to leave his recently mutilated partner. Finn and April kind of together. It's unclear. They're kind of together at this point. Has to leave her at the hospital. She's fine, and go to the baseball game. Meanwhile, the ladies have to get off the island to get back. So there's a really long shot of them running for the ferry.
Yes.
So it goes on for ages. And so we've got to get to the ferry. Run, run, run. No obstacles. Made it to the ferry. But what was the purpose of this? But okay. So
they
they
may
get
have
on the
had
ferry.
to fill time for a commercial.
I think so. Oh yes, I don't factor in that this was shown on TV. I watched this on YouTube.
These are all about. I think they all run about an hour and 30 minutes long to an hour and 40 minutes long, and I think they all were on Sci-Fi Channel. So
probably in like a 2-hour slot with ads.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. Yep. Fair enough. I should factor that in. So they get the ferry back. There is nobody else on the ferry, despite the hundreds of people we saw running for the ferry. And one of the other ladies gets taken out when she looks over the side. Just a shark just jumps up and kind of clings onto her face in one of the more brutal kills in the film. There's this shark just like sucking on her face for a while. And then Ellen tases it, and we see her like facial spasms after the shark is released. And I was like, oh. And she's still alive and thriving for a little bit, and then writhing for a little bit, and then not pleasant.
It was a good kill. I'll even though and be prepared to if you do decide to watch this. The CGI is absolute garbage.
Yes,
and it couldn't possibly be worse. And I think that's part of its charm. But also because of that, like some of these, there are some really cool kills. There are some really cool kills. I'll give the movie that. And because the CGI is so bad, it's very easy to laugh. If it wasn't, this would be horrific.
Horrific, yeah.
It would be a nightmare. This would not be fit to be shown on television, on any screen probably. But because it's so campy and because the CGI is so terrible, it turns into comedy, and it's really lovely.
So I was on Mark's podcast, Movies, Films and Flicks, earlier this year to talk about Twister, one of my favourite childhood films. Love Twister. And I was like, back then, it's made in '96, but it's a tornado. It's hard to make a tornado look bad. It's just, it's just kind of whirly wind. And then I watched Sharknado and realised, oh no, Twister actually did a really great job of making this look fantastic compared to the MS Paint job it could have been.
Well, I use that as an example too. I love that movie. It's rare that a day goes by that I don't quote it somehow. Food.
Debris!
Yes, the suck zone. There's always something that somehow can come into play each day. But it's a silly movie too. It's a silly movie that actually works and is good though. And the special effects they're really good. They really are. They're still really good.
Have you seen Twisters?
We're gonna go see it. Not this weekend because I'm gonna be gone, but we're gonna go see it next weekend. And we're gonna take the little guy to see it. I'm excited. It
Yes,
looks ridiculous.
I was on the Out Now with Aaron and Abe podcast talking about Twisters this past weekend, or 2 months ago when you hear this, listeners. And I had a great time with Twisters. I really enjoyed it. So
Yay!
have
Everybody's
fun.
saying it's really great. I'm so excited. I'm so excited. Yay!
It
Yay! I love.
I got over my I don't particularly enjoy Glenn Powell and stuff things. So he's I can't take him seriously as a good guy. He's a bad guy. He's always a bad guy. He has a bad guy face.
He does.
Evil face.
He
So
does.
they get off the ferry and race back. They eventually end up getting on bikes, and then Pepper doesn't make it. A shark lands on
No.
her. I think a whale shark just lands on her.
It just squishes her just as the mom and the daughter are about to make it into the hotel, I think. There's
Yes.
also no continuity either for the water table at all. In some
Yeah.
places the water is just rising.
I would say
Uh
it's more consistent in the first film. This really bugged me in the first film where they'd be inside of a house that was flooding, and they'd go outside and there'd be no water anywhere.
yeah.
No house is that waterproof that the water
Nope.
would stay in, and like there'd be sharks swimming along on roads they could still drive on. Like, it just doesn't
Especially
make.
in yeah, especially in LA. There's no way. No, no, no. It's bad. It is bad in the first one. And
At least here
there
when
are parts here that it stands out. One of them is when they're all in the skyscraper and they're running up it and the water level is coming up so they
and
can't
then
go
they get out
down.
of the yeah.
And they go out into the street and there's no water outside the building.
Well, they do kind of explain that ridiculously in that we're jumping ahead a little bit, but when because that's when Iron Ziering and Vivica are at the top of the skyscraper, and like the Sharknado breaks in from above and all goes down the elevator shaft, so that water
Yeah.
is pouring into the hotel from the elevator. So it's all
Which
like inside the hotel, flooding it out from the inside rather than being out. I get it; it's nonsense, but they do at least try to explain it.
well, and here's the thing. I say this and I mean this. In any world, I don't care how ridiculous it is. If you are a creator, you can make up whatever rules you want, and I
Sure.
will believe them. You just tell me what the rules of your world are, and if you stick to them, I don't care how insane and ridiculous they are. I don't care how much I don't like them. I will believe what you're telling me. I'm not
Yeah.
trying to believe anything in this movie. So when stuff stands out, it's like, come on now, you had one job.
Uh,
But it does.
so
It follows through with the Sharknadoes feel like they are chasing Finn and April for the most part. It
yes.
does feel like that.
So Finn is chasing the Sharknado to the baseball stadium where Mark McGrath and Child are, and they're there with their friends. These are all like high school buddies. So that's Vivica A. Fox is there, Sky, and Judah Friedlander,
Yeah.
unrecognizable because he's not wearing glasses and a hat. So who knows what this guy looks like without those things on? He's there as Brian, and so that they all kind of meet up eventually. Just as Finn gets there, sits down. Oh, when Finn gets there, sees Sky first, and Sky's like, "Hey," he's like, "Hey," and so I forgot to give you something the last time I saw you, and she gives him a big kiss.
Yeah.
And it's super awkward because he's like, "I'm with April now," and then she just looks dejected for the rest of the film.
Yeah.
So
Also, there was no reason for that either. That didn't have to happen. There
sure.
was, there was literally no reason. They could have just been friends and been like old best friends and not had like this old flame stuff going on.
I
No
I feel
reason
like
for it.
it's kind of the trope of these kind of films where all the women have got to fancy the hero. Because they had the
Yeah.
same thing. Like Nova had an eye for Finn in the first film, and then as soon as he spurned her, she then made a move on his son. Which here, when he says no to Sky, the next person that she kisses is the son here as well. Not romantically, but it's like in a good luck Star Wars kind of way. But still, it felt like very unnecessary.
Extremely unnecessary. But this is also an asylum film, and
Sure.
there are very few asylum films now. It's because this was made for TV, and there's been a couple others that I've seen on TV. But I also years ago interviewed a director that did a ghost story for I don't remember what it was called. I should, but old fog brain. Um, But the movie was actually pretty good. And then out of nowhere, like a woman comes out of the shed and you just see boobs. Like her boobs fell out of her shirt for no reason at all. And I remember asking the director, I said, the movie was, I like the movie and I even like the character. I'm like, why the breasts? I'm a fan of them, but why? And he said, because I had to.
Yeah.
Because it was an asylum film. So asylum films that do not uh, come on TV where they have to be edited, they often almost every single one I've ever shown has some kind of female nudity in it. So you're right on track there, Jay. 100%.
I've been pleasantly surprised by how little there has been no nudity so far in these films. I was expecting them to be Fast and Furious-esque in terms
Nope.
of the ogling. There was a bit of ogling in the first film where you had Baz and Finn on the beach. A lot of scenery today as they're walking around. That's my Tasmanian accent. And it's great. And then there's like a lot of shots of Nova just in a bikini. But there's like this film, everyone is fully clothed throughout.
It's
Well
also
done, everyone
snowing often, and they try to make it look like rain, but there are a few scenes where it's actually snowing. Or maybe they're trying to make it look like hail, but it is snowing. So whenever they filmed this movie, it was cold out. It was
Yeah.
definitely cold out.
So they go to the baseball stadium. Sharknado hits the baseball stadium. Oh, before then, Judah Friedlander goes to get a hot dog, and who's in front of him but Richard Kind, one of my favorite character actors.
I know, he's so wonderful.
I love him so much. And from Spin City to A Bug's Life to to A Serious Man, I'll watch Richard Kind do anything. And it's just like, what are you doing here? And then it turns out they needed a good actor for a scene, because Judah Friedlander recognizes him as being a famous baseball player, whose name
Harlan the Blaster.
Harlan the Blaster McGinnis. He's like, what are
There
you
you go.
doing? Queuing up for a hot dog? And he's like, let me tell you a story. And it gives him this most dramatic monologue reading of the time of his last pitch at bat when he let his dad down.
Yep.
So
It
where is
was
this?
by far the highlight as far as acting goes with the whole movie. And once again, I don't know why we needed that story.
Yeah, I was confused.
I enjoyed it, but we didn't need it.
Richard Kind doing his best to make something out of nothing with
He did though.
He did a
was
fantastic job.
successful.
And then he has the best arc in the film where when everyone exits the stadium, he goes back to help a kid. There's a shark coming towards him, and so he grabs a convenient baseball bat and hits the shark for a home run.
It's cool. It's cool because it's Richard Kind. That's why it's cool.
And I was expecting like, is he like the John Hurt character where he's just gonna get taken out helping someone? But no, he helps someone, survives. As far as I know,
Yep.
He's in every film coming up.
Yep, I think that he is. He's one of the survivors. Oh, I love that man. He's so delightful.
It was just floored. That was Richard. Oh, also skipped over. Judd Hirsch is in this film too. He's the taxi driver. Bears Ben.
I completely forgot about it, and then I had to ask myself. I was like, did he have some connection in the first one? And I don't think he did. Did he?
No.
Yeah.
No.
He was just randomly there. Yeah, he was just randomly there.
It's like fourth build or something in this.
Yeah, and he's also a good actor.
Judd Hirsch is great. Oscar nominee. Judd Hirsch.
Yes, and he just shows up as the cab driver.
I love Judd. I adore him in The Fabelmans. Did you see The Fabelmans?
No.
So Fabelmans is like Spielberg's origin story, kind of. And Judd Hirsch plays his mother's uncle, who just like shows up mid-dinner one day, and young Spielberg has to share a room with him. And so this guy like he picks a chicken carcass and just eats it with his bare fingers, and then he gives young Spielberg, who has a different name, I can't remember what it is, just this speech about like he joined the circus and how to live his life. And it's one scene, he got nominated for an Oscar for it, and it's the best part of it's the second best part of the film. The best part of the film happens right at the end with a cameo. I will not spoil, but the Fabelmans end has one of my favorite endings in recent years. I would recommend it. It's a drama. It's very navel gazing for Spielberg, but it's also a really good time and really well made. So
I'll
I would
watch it.
recommend it.
I will definitely watch it. And I do. I like him. I think he's fantastic. I don't know why he showed up in this, but he played his part. He like Richard Kind. He showed up and did his part well. He made the lines sound like they were believable, which
Yeah.
is difficult.
And he's playing a taxi driver, just like his character from Taxi. And
Yes.
he's he's a New York guy. Like he's been in Independence Day, which is a very New York film for a while, and he's in the New York scenes in that one.
That's
Well, no, he's
true.
so he feels like right to be there. Yeah, he was born in New York. There we go. He's 89.
I
Uh,
am curious how they got so many of these people in the movie.
well, from what I've heard, the first one became like such a phenomenon that people were
Yeah.
like reaching out to be part of it when it was announced there was going to be a second one. So I don't know if it was like a lot of favors. A lot of people were like, yeah, I'll be in it, sure, because like they didn't have
I
anybody for more than a day,
That's
if
true.
that. A lot of people are
Yeah.
playing themselves at work at their regular job. So
All of them looked like all of the newscasters, they looked like they were having a really good time.
yeah, because like this is almost like real time found footage esque news cut-ins and weather updates from the actual TV studios, the actual TV presenters. Is it what's his name?
Al
Um,
Roker.
Al Roker,
Yeah.
a name I'd heard but a face I'd never seen before. So
Matt
like Al
Lauer.
Roker and Matt Lauer, yeah, these are like
Yeah.
American staples, I assume, that I'm not familiar with. But I recognize them as being like, hey, you must be a real person. Like Kelly Ripa, I've heard the name before as well.
Yeah.
So
And all of them, they're on all of our morning shows that I'm not a particular fan of, but they've been on for decades and decades. Most people from this country recognize them in one form or another. Fans or not. But I think that's actually part of what gave the movie made it feel like a movie. Like you said, found footage. I love found footage movies too. But I think that's part of why some of it worked, because it is very much so a start to finish. There's one goal. We've got one plan. It doesn't really get disrupted too much. It's pretty simple. There's nothing overtly complex. We just have tons of characters that walk in and out of every scene. But the one bit of continuity is the flashes to the news throughout. And it does kind of tie everything together. And it does kind of look back on it. It makes you look at it retrospectively, almost like, oh, okay, well, I'm observing this as a viewer while it's happening in real time, kind of. But also, yeah, it's just I think it's one of the aspects of it that make it work, even though it also makes it more ridiculous.
yes, yeah, I agree. But they all seem like game for the role as
Yes.
well. They were having a good time. Like there's a running
Yeah.
bit between Al Roker and Matt Lauer that Matt Lauer can't seem to say Sharknado. He keeps saying Shark Storm, and Lauer's like Sharknado. Is that Shark Storm? So it doesn't. It's not relevant, but it's fun. Um, so yeah, so they get out of the baseball stadium, they head to the subway because it's New York. Gotta have a subway. So they get on there. No, I'll circle back in a minute because it's my favorite bit I need to go back to. But no, they get on the subway and they're like, hope the tunnel's not flooded. And as they're going along, of course, the tunnel floods, and somehow a
Hmm.
shark rips off the back of the subway train.
Yeah. Yeah. Because
Uh,
sharks can do that.
yeah, sure. One of the sharks is a megalodon. Fine. So you've got like Judah Friedlander gets killed there. The Anthony Cifuente is the guy playing the guitar, the busker. So the director of this
Yep.
film is the busker. We don't see him die, unfortunately. We also don't see Jared Fogle die, unfortunately. He has a little cameo as Jared from Subway and a Subway.
Yeah. Yeah. That was dated too. I'm like,
Little
whoa,
bit, little
Jared's in
bit.
the movie. You might want to
Yeah,
take that out of your film.
maybe. Yeah.
But it was still funny.
Yeah, I just would have been great if he'd been eaten. But there
Yes,
we are. um,
you're right. He got away with it. You're
he
right.
did.
Oh, that
He
son of
survived.
a bitch.
And so yeah, Finn fights off a shark on there. They get out the subway. It's a fun set piece, but there's not really a lot going on other than like sharks are attacking and everyone gets out. Fine.
Yeah,
And
and
then
Finn's super aggressive as he is through the whole thing. Like Finn has a perma scowl throughout the whole entire movie. He never changes his expression at all. He's just going through the motions and kicking some serious ass. It's it's really funny. But he's the only person that stays focused. And everybody's always like, I would like to help you. No, I have to do this alone. He's totally that guy too. Throughout every single sequence. I have to do this. Okay, surfer guy. Go for it.
And so they get out, and then Judd Hirsch, Ben, is back there waiting for them again.
Yeah.
So they get in his taxi. They are somewhere else. They have moved. They have travelled far away. They've gone to, I think, the 96th station is where they're at when they get out. So I was trying to work out how deep on the ground it is, which I did. 'Cause that's how thorough I am. So he's waiting outside. Somehow they get in this taxi, and he's like, "We need to go to this hotel. Also need to go and get some material to make bombs, because Finn knows how to get rid of a Sharknado. You throw a bomb in it. He's done it before." So they like, we need to go and get a hardware store. Like New York, there's no hardware stores. I need to go and get some chainsaws. There's no hardware. What are you talking about? So they go to Times Square.
Are there really no hardware stores in New York? Is that like a true real thing? I don't know.
No idea. Well,
I know that
later
you
in the
don't.
film,
I don't know.
later in the film, there are multiple cars with numerous tools in their boots, in their trunks. So I'm gonna say they've got to have bought them somewhere. Maybe it's all from Jersey. Who knows? Jersey doesn't come off well from this film. It was like, oh, don't go to Jersey. What are you talking about?
Jersey doesn't come up well. I'm not from New York. I'm married to someone that is from Jersey. Yeah, Jersey and New York, there's nothing but bad blood there. Bad blood. I don't really know why, but that's a real thing.
That's all it is. Like, I'm from a town called Southampton. Our neighbouring city is like Portsmouth. They hate each other. The football teams especially hate each other. Technically, my dad is from an island that counts himself as being part of Portsmouth, but we're from Southampton, and he supports the Portsmouth football team despite living in Southampton, and he's just hated by everyone in the supporting the wrong team.
Funny. We have that here in Metro Detroit area too. Our two in Michigan. We have two big colleges. One is U of M, which people outside of the United States might actually know U of M. And the other one is Michigan State. U of M is known as being this big fancy school. They have a huge, which that's where we go for all of our medical stuff for my son. U of M is great, but Michigan State is looked at as a blue collar college. So they are alt nemesis and have been forever. They aren't anywhere on the same spectrum of each other as far as football and all the other sports and such goes. But people around here, they will get into physical confrontations with each other when they are playing each other's football teams or whatever. And the thing that I find most strange about it is most of these people never went to either of these colleges. I understand if you have the loyalty because you went there, it's your school. Yeah, okay, take that with you. I get it. I get bleed for your school. All right, okay, I get it. But most of these people have it. My brother's one of them. It's like U of M, yeah. And I'll just wear, when his son was born, the one that I watched all these movies with, I used to buy him Michigan State stuff all the time to piss my brother off. And then I found out he was just throwing it away. So I stopped. But it's really weird how people get like so attached. I get it if it's your hometown, that's where you're from, but when somebody lives across the street from you and there's just hatred for no reason other than there to be hatred, it's a little silly. But it's real.
It sure is. Yeah, I'm not into. I don't follow sports at all, so I don't understand the mentality of. I don't watch, like, England recently got into the Euros final, and I don't care. So I don't know these people.
You don't need to. It's fine. We're doing fine. We've got Sharknado.
Yeah, that's all I need. So they go for supplies. They manage to find like all of the things they need in a bodega, because of course they're going to have like flares and smoke alarms and several cans of napalm. Just in a corner shop.
They're going to put in a super soaker, which they also have those. Yeah.
Yep. Finn goes to his childhood pizzeria to have a chat with Biz Marquis.
Biz Marquis, I was so excited. I forgot he was in it. He was one of my favorite parts.
And Sky goes to get a slingshot from a toy shop. Great. And then they also get a sword. And I was like, oh, we're going to have, like, someone with a sword fighting a swordfish. And that doesn't happen.
Nope.
So the sword does get used. It chops some sharks up, but that's about it.
Yeah, it has a couple cool moments, but you know what would have been better too is if they would have actually put on all the armor.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
also would have been smart to do so.
And then you could have
I
had someone wearing it, and then they can't like swim. They get dragged to the bottom of the sea and they drown wearing the armor because they couldn't get out. And then a shark eats the armor.
Oh no, you're making it way too clever. That's that is going way too deep with it. That would have been great though. I'm for it. We should make our own Sharknado movie.
I mean, they've stopped making them. We could start. We do number 7.
We could we could be we could make them go back in time, which actually they did time travel, so maybe
Yeah.
that's how we're done. It's done.
So as they're heading to the hotel, the really tall hotel, it's a fictional hotel, but it's like the second hotel in North America apparently. As they're heading there, so second highest hotel. But the streets flood like day after tomorrow. Water just pours in and it strands the taxi in the middle of this water, and it's like up to the height of the window. So they need to get off. So this is where it gets better than the first film in that when the sharks are able to swim on the streets, the car can't drive anymore, which doesn't happen in the first film. The first film, these things can happen simultaneously.
Nope.
But here, the water's deep enough, so they've got to get out. So they get. Fortunately, Judd Hirsch has some convenient tow rope just to hand in his truck.
Yeah, because that's what cab drivers do. Yeah, they carry
throw it
that
over.
around with
Yeah,
them.
throw it over a lamppost. Swing to safety. Martin gets over. Sky and Kid get over. When Ben goes to swing, Judd Hirsch, he doesn't make it, and he gets taken out by a shark, and the rope goes down with him. So then Finn is stranded on a taxi. There's no time to get more rope, so he and Mark McGrath are like, Frogger! And so but it shouldn't be Frogger, it should be Live and Let Die, because he jumps across the heads of these sharks.
And then they make the joke about jumping the shark.
Jumping the shark, which isn't what he did. He stepped on several sharks.
Yep. It was, correct. 100%
Film is
correct.
flawed.
They got it wrong in 2 different breaths, making their joke. Their punchlines were broken.
But then they head to the hotel. Sorry, I missed in terms of the Carrie Wurr and her daughter's journey is when they get off of the ferry and they get the bikes and they're chasing. Well, before they get the bikes, when they're running, they end up being they run into I think a guy from Shark Tank, which we don't have in the UK. We have Dragon's Den, but we have a guy from Shark Tank is there, and like he goes to help them, and he goes back for his suitcase, and then he gets killed.
Yep.
Not by a shark. He gets crushed by the detached head of the Statue of Liberty.
That was fun.
that was fun. And you might think, oh, this Statue of Liberty head, which I do enjoy how the sharks, their favourite thing to do is decapitate people, and it doesn't stop at people, it also goes to statues.
Okay.
So great.
Thank you. Okay, one of my favorite things in the world is decapitation. I know that's
You get a bunch of them here.
I
There's
know.
3 in the opening scene.
There's so many in this movie. It is so freaking great. I love decapitations, especially, if I'm watching a horror movie and they're like, hey, this is the only way we can kill vampires. Okay, yes, I am in. One of the reasons I love Peter Jackson is he's going to throw at least one decapitation in every single movie he has, whether it's warranted or not. There's going to be a decapitated person in this movie. It's just such a satisfying way to watch somebody die.
It is. It really is. And it happens a bunch.
Also at this point too, I love and I'm laughing my butt off because they, like we said, they keep going back to the newsreels. They constantly have people talking about how many sharks per hour or whatever are coming in, and it's always 2 inches of sharks per hour.
I love that. That's my favorite joke in the whole film. Is they have the graphics set up for the weather forecast of sharks in the rain. Like we're gonna watch out for 2 inches of sharks in this area. It's like, because that is if it's done the same way they work out rain, where it's like they're going to work out how much it falls and the average of the area is going to average about 2 inches across. That is probably true for sharks. You look at the volume of sharks and you divide it by the total area they're going to land. It's going to be about 2 inches of sharks everywhere. So that is
engineered Jay's mind doing math. I didn't know there would be math.
So I enjoyed that a lot.
Yeah.
So you might think this Statue of Liberty head is just fallen and crushed this guy, and that's the journey of the head. No. This head keeps rolling forever. Like it just keeps going and going. I don't know
Yep.
what it was that initially caused this thing to become detached and rolling, but it is going. It is going and going. It is chasing these ladies as they're running, as they get into a garbage truck, and it continues to chase them, and it ends up
It made
lodging
me think
itself
of
in the
the
tunnel.
rolling ball in Temple of Doom
Yeah,
behind
but
it, like,
but alive
but
somehow.
forever. Yeah, like sentient following them.
it it's fantastic. Yeah, that was the bit I had to circle back to because I love that so much because it's so stupid.
Yes.
Yeah. So everyone makes it to the hotel. Finn and Sky go up to the top and try and throw some bombs in it. They're not really working, and then the water starts. Then all they've managed to do is set fire to the sharks in the sky. So now any sharks that come down are also on fire. So,
It's again.
they haven't
It makes
improved the
no
situation.
sense. It's entirely unnecessary, and yet it's fantastic.
Well, and this is when the water starts coming up from the bottom of the hotel, and the sharks.
Yep.
So you have Finn and Sky coming down, and everyone else coming up, and they're like, "Why are you coming up?" It's like the water sharks. I'm like, "Why are you coming down?" The sharks are on fire. So then we
Also,
get
at this point too, I keep looking at Vivica A. Fox, and I love Vivica A. Fox. And she was also in Independence Day with Mr. Hirsch.
John Hurst.
Uh,
Yeah.
yeah. I kept looking at her at certain points if there was anything that was focused on her, and I went, "What are you doing in this movie?
Yeah.
What are you doing here?"
I was
Like,
surprised to see her name in the opening credits. Like, wait, they got an actor for this film? What is?
yeah.
Why?
I
How
rem
come?
I remember well, and now it makes more sense. I've seen her in lots of Hallmark movies and lots of stuff like that over the years, and she does these commercials that Mike likes to tease me with. But now it makes sense. But at the time, this was 10 years ago. It wasn't like that long after Kill Bill, and she'd done a bunch of other stuff too. So it was really surprising to see her in it then. But even now, I'm still going, "Oh, okay." But I like her. I've always liked her. And she did fine in this. She did what she could with her part.
Yeah.
She
I have no
she
criticism at all. She has,
Nope.
like, maybe we'll cover her in Aquarium of the Dead at some point. Another film she's in.
Oh
I
gosh,
think she'll
there's
have a
another
bunch of
there
these kinds of things.
well, yeah, that's what I'm saying. I think after this is kind of what happened to her career. I think this is kind of where she stayed. So I'd be willing to watch more
Oh,
more
a,
more
a,
bad movies
scien-
with her.
a scientific accident causes sea creatures in an aquarium to become zombies.
Sold.
Yes, that is the correct response.
Sold.
She is top billed as Eddie
Ah,
Clueworth, so that's being added to the list. Great.
ah.
It's got a 2.8 on IMDb. Sounds about right. But yes, like she has 244 acting credits. That's a lot of acting credits.
Whoa.
But yeah, I don't think they're all great. But she's a working actress, so good for her.
Yep.
Yeah, and
And
like I
and
say,
we're
I
both
think
excited to watch more of her bad films. So
absolutely,
there we go.
absolutely. So we have a very Deep Blue Sea scene here where they need to get out of a stairwell, and so the heroes go down to grab the axe, distract the shark to come back up and open a door, which is very much Carter in the elevator shaft going down to open the thing with the knife and the shark
Yep.
in there. But yet, this is so aggravating. Like, you have Finn and you have Martin go down, and they're like, we need to. There's a shark by the axe. We've got to go down and do the old bait and switch, like we used to do, and which like is presumably means one of them is gonna become a decoy and distract the shark, so the other can grab the axe. So they go down, stand next to each other, go like, hey, come over here, I'm over here, grab the axe, and walk back up the steps. The shark is nowhere involved. This was
Nope.
terribly directed, terribly shot.
Yep. Yep.
just bad.
I actually rewound I backspaced. What do we even call that now? I rewound. I'm old.
Sure,
I
that works.
rewound.
You
this
skipped
part.
back a chapter.
I thank you. I skipped
You,
back.
you pressed L2 on the PlayStation controller.
I'm an Xboxer, but yes, I gotcha.
Sure. Okay.
Yeah, so I go back and I'm like, did I just see that correctly? I should. Yeah. It's so weird too. Also, again, I feel like if the actors just didn't talk, it would probably be better. It's like because they don't need the conversation about remember when we used to do this? I'm like, you guys have no rapport. You have no chemistry between you. It's fine. Just let the sharks try and kill you and run. You don't even have to talk. It'll probably be better. Just stop it. Stop trying to be friends. It's weird. It would be
You
better
want
if you were
Buster?
strangers on the street and you had bonded somehow in this moment of the world is ending apocalypse. That I would
Yeah.
buy.
I want
Stop trying to rekindle your friendship. It's weird.
Buster Keaton's Sharknado. That's what I want to have. That'd be fantastic. Actually, he does have some films we could cover. He did a film with there was a flood.
See?
Steamboat Bill Jr. We could
This
cover that at some point.
podcast will go on until the end of time, and I'm
Forever.
very happy about it.
Yep. So they get out. There's no water outside, as you mentioned earlier, and then April rocks up in a stolen ambulance fire truck combo that she's liberated when she escaped the hospital. Billy Ray Cyrus is her doctor. Why is Billy Ray Cyrus in this film? It turns out he played a doctor in a TV show for ages, so I didn't even know he was an actor. So fine.
I didn't either.
He's playing Dr. Quint is his full name because of Quint from Jaws. So wonderful.
Oh yeah, and then they switch back to Al Roker at this point, and he's talking, and then he goes, and in these series of unprecedented events, and I had to pause it. I'm like, I'm tired, Al. I'm really tired of living through unprecedented events in my lifetime. Right now, I think I'd actually opt for a Sharknado over reality.
Yeah. I need people to start precedenting things that I don't think are going to happen. Let's have precedent unlikely things, and we'll just have something can be planned at this point. Just something, please.
Yeah, like your aquarium creatures turning into zombies. I'm ready for that. I can do that. I'm ready for that. This
Put
stuff
some
not
contingencies in place, ready for when the jellyfish become zombies. Just start planning now, please.
Right on.
So they all get out, and then they're now just on the streets of New York where there are no sharks. And apparently the Sharknado and two other tornadoes that have merged are all based New York tourists and are heading to the Empire State Building, where they will converge and hell will open up and death will come to all.
And quite literally, they tried to give, and I love this so much, they tried to give with their weather person a scientific explanation for why these tornadoes are converging and why they're drawn. They're like, well, there's like areas where the wind is sucking them in, the suck zone, or something of that nature, sucking them in, so they're drawing them towards the Empire State Building. It made no sense, but I loved so much that they tried to make it make sense. It was hysterical.
I agree. Yes. So Finn gets up on he talks to the mayor, who is played by a comedian who I didn't write his name down. Where did his name go? Robert Klein is the mayor.
Yeah.
And I'd never heard of this guy, so I was looking and thinking, I'm assuming this is the mayor of New York, because that's what is happening in this film, and he's just happens to be like a decent actor. But no, Robert Klein from like SNL, he hosted SNL the first couple of seasons and stand-up comedian and stuff. Anyway, he's pretty good, and he's the mayor, so great. There's like a wrestler is playing a fire chief, Kurt Angle. These are all people that I've now know of since seeing in this film. And Finn he's given a chainsaw. He gets on top of the truck and gives his Independence Day speech to everyone. And,
which, by the way, includes "I've been eaten before."
Yeah, no one wants to get eaten, but I've been eaten, and it takes more than that to bring a New Yorker down. Sure, okay. And
literally,
midway
if you don't want to
through
watch the movie, just go to YouTube to watch the speech. It's worth it.
Midway through the speech, a shark obviously descends upon him, and he cuts it in half with the chainsaw, because how else could he do it? So then he and Sky, and he also tells everyone, right, the plan is now to freeze the tornado with the Freon that is on top of the Empire State Building. And he says, when we do that, a bunch of sharks are going to fall down, so get ready. And everyone's like, yeah, we will be ready. And when it happens, they are not ready.
Nope.
They start to get ready when the sharks start to fall. So that is too late to get ready.
Hey, Let me tell you something, though, Jay. I don't know how it is for you in England, but that is exactly how Americans respond to things.
100%. Yes.
They are 100% warned for time on ending to prepare for things that are coming. And then once they do, they're like, what the nobody told us. We're not ready. 100%.
Yes, it's very, very realistic, apart from
It's the
the whole
most
Sharknado
realistic
thing.
part of the whole entire movie.
So Finn and Sky go up to the top. April eventually goes up as well, with her new hand attachment, which is the circular saw on her arm stump.
By the way, her running around with the stump through the whole movie, it does not stop her at all. Like she's not uncomfortable. She's not in pain. She's just working with the fact that she has a stump and she lost her hand like earlier that day. It's fine. She has her arm in a sling, but she doesn't keep it in the sling at all.
Yeah, this is the same day. This is the day she lost her hand that morning.
Yep.
And
morning.
she is on some just a huge amounts of morphine, I can only assume.
I hope so.
Just a fantastic day. So this is all a dream. None of this happens. It's all just in April's head. So yeah, she manages to, when Finn's chainsaw isn't starting, she just like rocks up and cuts the shark in half with a little circular saw, and then leaves. That's it. She's done. She had a moment. She goes back down again. Sky goes inside to like hold the wire together and then Finn has to use this chainsaw to connect to the. It's a whole thing. It's like basically they know they're all gonna die. So also it's very deep blue sea. This wire has to touch this thing, and we've got to do it in the right time to explode everything. And they do it, and the Sharknado explodes. But also Vivica A. Fox explodes out and is cut in half by a shark in midair.
Yes, I was going to say she explodes away from the explosion, but that is not what kills her. She's in the sky, in the vortex of the tornado, flinging about. And then dramatically a shark comes and just rips her in half. And the correct response, if you laugh, is laughter.
Yes, absolutely.
The correct response to everything throughout this movie is maniacal laughter.
That is, I had thought she was going to be in future films. I had hoped she would be. I'm guessing that is not the case because she is bifurcated at this point. So sadly, we lose the character of Sky. But that's it. And Finn survives. Finn also blown out with the explosion, but is able to wrangle a shark in midair. Rides it onto the top of the Empire State Building, kebabs it on the spire, and just
it's silly watching it, but when we're saying it aloud, it's just so funny.
Well, prior to that, he manages to chainsaw through a shark as well, like a shark. I'm gonna eat you in midair, and he just chainsaws through it. Which he's been there before. This time he goes all the way through.
Yeah. So and again too, deadpan, same face, never changes anything. He's got his perma-scowl on. He's going to work and he's doing his job. I admire Ian Ziering so much.
He's blasé at this point. This is old hat to him. He's done this a bunch of times.
He just wants the day to be over so he can go home and have a beer and pass out.
No, he wants his slice of New York pizza. We'll get there.
There you go.
He survives, lands, wrangles a shark in midair, lands, etc. We then see shots of all of the news crews fighting sharks as well. Kelly Ripa stilettos one in the head with Chekhov's stilettos set up earlier.
Stabs one with her heel. Okay, again, ridiculous, silly movie, but that part makes me so happy every time because I've had fantasies about doing that, killing someone with one of my fancy heels. Plus, it's Kelly Ripa, which, if you know Kelly Ripa, it's pretty funny, and she seemed to be enjoying herself quite a bit as well.
Matt Lauer and Al Roker take one out with an umbrella. It's all fun and games. Sharks everywhere.
It is.
And all the New Yorkers who weren't ready are now like, oh, go to our cars where all of our tools are. And so one has like a snow shovel, one has a bunch of guns, and they just all stand back to back shooting sharks.
The one guy has three. For some reason, he's got 3 different kinds of chainsaws in the back of his pickup truck, and he grabs each one, turns them on, which, by the way, it's not that easy to start a chainsaw. If it's raining and it's windy, it's still kind of hard. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. He's starting these chainsaws, and then he just tosses them in the air, and they go flying and start killing sharks.
Yeah, he's not making the situation better.
No, he's not. It's another
He's just
problem.
adding more dangerous things into the Sharknado.
It's so bad and funny. Oh man. Yeah, there's no reason for it at all. There's no reason for any of it, and yet it all happens. And then you get this part where you have like all of these people that I don't know what they were doing, but they start stomping down the street, and I feel very Gangs of New York about it. They're coming down to fight the sharks with their shovels and guns. And it's just so ridiculous and awesome. Oh, I'm crying.
Yeah. Yeah,
I'm
it's a silly scene. But there we are. And that's the film.
Yeah.
That's the film. Oh no, sorry. That's not the film because Finn makes it to April and he's like there's a shark coming towards him. He's like, I need a weapon. And there's a shark that has a familiar scar. And he reaches inside it, and what does he find inside? April's hand with the gun from earlier in
Oh
the
yeah,
film,
that's right.
and her engagement ring, which just as ludicrous, potentially more ludicrous than in the end of the first film where he saves Nova. He like chainsaws into the shark that happened to be the one that ate Nova. Fine. This one, he just pulls it out, shoots the shark, bang, 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 like unlimited amount of bullets from this one shark. Proposes again, and like fine, of course, that's the shark from earlier that when she shot it when she's in the plane, it landed on the Empire State Building. Fine. Fine. just
It's a
just
beginning,
fine.
there's a middle, and there's an end. There's a beginning, there's a middle, and an end.
Yeah. So that's the end of the film. That's Sharknado 2, and we talked
And a
about it for a
beginning, a
while.
middle, and an end.
Beginning, middle, end. Yep.
This is the final of the Sharknado series that has a beginning, middle, and an end, and is in any way, shape, or form coherent.
Okay, excellent. Well, speaking of an end, there are two features we need to do before we round out the show. How is Sharknado 2 similar to Deep Blue Sea? Quite a long list. There's a plane ride. They're serving drinks. There's a storm. There's a shark outside of a window trying to be on a plane. They talk about eating bird because the pilots had chicken. A shark explodes in a plane engine. A shark breaks through a window. Someone gets their hand or arm bitten off by a shark. Shark recognizes an unusual thing because April talks about the shark recognizing her. So, okay. Shark is electrocuted. There is a musician amongst the cast. There's actually a couple. There's kind of a preacher. There's a guy on the street yelling about religion. There's kind of a preacher. And there's a chef in a kitchen, which is Biz Marquis. Yeah, there's a chef in a kitchen played by a musician.
Yes.
I didn't even think about that.
Yes.
There's a shark oven altercation because they managed to hit a shark into the oven in that scene. There's a lot of consulting weather storm maps. There's water in an elevator shaft. There's a shark in a stairwell. Finn and Martin go down to open a door with a fire axe kind of thing. Someone uses an axe. Climax involves connecting cables, and there's shark wrangling. So it's a lot of shark-related stuff, but it's all similar to Deep Sea. And then finally, how deep and how blue is this film? So Heather, as I'm sure you know, when I go through these films, I try to work out, on average, how deep the action is at various points in the film, and how blue everything is on screen. And also, recently, how much of the film takes place at sea. We've added in a whole new category of Deep Blue Sea. Deep Blue Sea itself is, of course, on average, about 14.5 meters or 47.5 feet deep, about 31% blue, and 89% of it takes place at sea. Do you think Sharknado 2 is deeper, bluer, and more at sea than Deep Blue Sea?
Absolutely not. Most of it takes place, well, it takes place in Manhattan and in Skyscraper. So no, I don't think it's going to surpass it in any of those categories.
Yeah, that's absolutely correct. It is like just that the opening sequence on a plane means that the height, the depth of it is skewed like completely.
Yeah.
So because that's like it's a like cruising altitude of a plane for a while.
There's no underwater. Everything is pretty much on land level and
above.
above.
When they're in the subway, I took that as being deep because they're underground.
Yes.
So so I found out the depth of that station, and then there's some people in a tunnel that are a little bit below that. So on average, depth-wise, this is 1,004 feet, like meters, sorry, or 3,295 feet up in the air. It is just like the first one, a very grey film. But it is grayer even than the first one. The first Sharknado was 11% blue. This one is 4.2% blue.
Yeah.
And exactly none of this film takes place at sea. Not a second of it. The only water that we're
No.
at isn't a sea. It's like the bay and where the Statue of Liberty is, which isn't a sea. So 0%, which means depth-wise, this is higher than Die Hard 2, less high than Con Air. So it's in between those two plane films. It is bluer than Congo, but less blue than Ravenous. And yeah, 0% at sea. So it is our
You
down the
did
bottom.
Congo?
Yes, love Congo. Love Congo to bits.
I love Congo so much. My son just quoted me yesterday. I looked at him and I said, "Liar, liar, pants on fire." And he told me to stop eating my sesame cake. I have
Yes,
never
of
been more
course.
proud as a parent. Ever.
Fantastic.
Ah! Awesome. Okay, sorry. Got excited.
No, by all means, quote Delroy Lindo as much as you want. So this is as much at sea as Rennie Harlin's Devil's Pass, which is 0%. So great. That will do it for Sharknado 2. Heather, thank you for joining me. Do you have anything you wish to plug? Where can the listeners find you?
Oh, yes. You can find me. I'm so excited that I don't have to list things anymore because I would always blank. I have everything on my website now. You can go to heatherbaxendale.com. You can find all the books that I've been writing on there. I write fantasy, action, and adventure stories with a little bit of sci-fi. I also am on the Word of Hellmouth podcast with my friend Mark Armstead, where we are going through Buffy the Vampire Slayer episode by episode. We just started season 3 and it's so much fun. This is my favorite season. You can find that on there, and you can find all the other weird stuff I do, like voice acting, and sign up for my newsletter and funsy stuff like that.
Fantastic. I recommend the Buffy podcast. I've only watched every episode once, but even still, you and Mark going through it, it's all coming back.
Great.
Love
Mark does a
listening to
really,
that.
really good job of keeping us on track.
You both do. You both are very good at it. And I can also recommend at least your first book, because I've read that, The Prophecy, is excellent. And
Thank you.
I need to buy the second one. It's in my Amazon wish list, so I'll order that soon.
The second one is a good time. It's a big transition. It's a lot of action adventure, and so they become after that. And I just finished the trilogy, so
Nice.
so it's all complete.
It off.
Thank
Excellent.
you.
Listeners, you can follow this podcast all over social media at Deep Blue Sea Pod. Email us deepblueseapod@gmail.com if you'd like to come and talk about Sharknado 3 or 4. And you can find everything Mark does over at moviesfilmsandflicks.com, and my site is lifeversusfilm.com. I mentioned that I was on Out Now with Aaron and Abe earlier this year, so go check me out on talking about Twisters. And Mark is on there all the time talking about a bunch of stuff. He was on their Chunking Express commentary episode earlier this year too. Next week will be Deep Blue Sea 1 Chapter 4, I think. That's a spreadsheet. Yes, Deep Blue Sea Chapter 4. So good. So that is we're still like in exposition territory. The crew leaves. We meet Brenda. It's that chapter. Yeah, there's some dancing going on there. Rennie Harlin's in that scene, so we'll talk about him again, I'm sure. But as for Sharknado 2, the second one, thank you once again to my guest Heather Baxendale-Walsh.
Thank you for having me on. I love the show.
I have been Jake Lower, and I'll Deep Blue see you next week.